Hello friends, how are you? This is Vikas Singh and welcome to Mentor Vikas channel. This is going to be one of the series which is most demanded, right? So here we are going to talk about Redux Saga. So what this Redux Saga is? So Redux Saga is basically used to perform side effects, right? So what basically side effect is? So side effect, if we talk about side effect, it's simply if you want to do some data fetching in Redux, right? You can't do that, right? Because that is in pure function and you can't do data fetching or any side effect. For example, getting some data from the local storage or cache, right? You can't do this directly in Redux, right? So to perform all these side effect with where all of this error handling and a kind of failure were already being handled by some another third party application. So that third party application could be Redux Saga, right? So Redux Saga is simply a library, and how it basically works, to see this I have an diagram for you, right? So this is a diagram where it represent the flow of the Redux. Okay, so if you're just going to remove this part from here, if I am just telling you that just remove this Redux Saga middleware part, right? So what you will have the flow of the Redux application, right? So what basically happen here in your view layer? So what is this view layer? This view layer is the interface, right? This view layer is the interface by which user is interacted with your application. For example, in our case, it's our web page, right? So on the web page, user click on some button, right? So after clicking on some button, or maybe you call some actions in your use effect, right? So whenever this component renders, you have to trigger an action. Okay, so by the view layer, it triggers an action, right? So when an event in trigger, it creates an action. That action dispatches from here and create and dispatch. What basically this dispatch means? So this dispatch means that it calls and reducer, right? So there in the reducer we perform like what state we need to manipulate, right, in our Redux store. So when an action is dispatched, it just go to the reducer, and according to the action that we had defined in the reducers, the type of action, it will perform some action and changes some value. And when it does all these their calculation, it will store the value in the store. The store the new value or the updated value in the store, and then that value could be accessed in our view layer, for example in our application, in our front end, right? So this was the normal flow of the Redux, right? But for example, here we are dispatching an action, right? And before delivering this action to directly to the reducer, here we are injecting a new third party application, right? A third party application. So here what basically it does, it basically the data which I am receiving from this action, right? So by using this data, I make an API request. Okay, so after making an API request, I am getting some response from there, right? And after getting them some response, I am sending this response to my reducer instead of the response coming from this view layer, right? So this basically gives me an ability to perform this, even though this API request or any asynchronous function that I want to perform, asynchronous action that I want to perform, I can do it right here. Okay, I don't have to do all my asynchronous application or the perform or calculations here in the view layer, then getting the data and then send that data with that application layer, right, with this event, and then it will trigger an action, then action will trigger the reducer, and the reducer will then further update the store based upon my values which I am sending directly from here. So I don't have to do this, right? So basically what all of this asynchronous function or the asynchronous API request that I am doing earlier there in my view layer is now going shifted to this part, right? So now I have an ability to do all my asynchronous functions, asynchronous tasks directly in my middleware, directly in my Redux, right? So this is how Redux Saga middleware works, right? So I understand that maybe probably this is not going to solve all your queries, but it will solve all your queries as we move further in this series, right? So as of now, let's come back to the documentation part. So as you can see, um, here we are also going to understand something different, right? Because earlier Redux also, so we also have another library that we call Redux Thunk, right? Which we can use to fetch the data, right? But basically what happens, there all of that error handling is done by ourselves, right? And if we forget to do or manage that error handling, that it may break our application, right? But in case of Redux Saga, this is not going to be the case, right? Because all of these errors handling and data fetching and all, for example, that all is being handled directly by this Redux Saga, right? And the one of the most promising thing about this Redux Saga, it uses an ES6 feature which we called janitor function, right? So it uses the janitor function as its core to perform all these asynchronous action. So if you are not familiar with that, what is janitor function, you may probably go to that MDN document for understanding this ES6 feature, okay? Or either in our next video we will talk about what is that janitor function that is being used in Redux Saga, right, throughout our application. So I think as of now this is enough for this video, and we will meet you in our next video. Till then, have a nice day and goodbye.